Hi, welcome back to Sideline Shenanigans. I have Coach Hart here from Gibson Southern. Coach, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's start from the beginning. What got you into coaching football in the first place? Was there a moment or a person that really sparked it?
Yeah, my dad, John Hart. He's been uh, coaching ever since I've been alive. Still doing it, and won the state championship at Brownsburg this year. I just grew up. My babysitter was football practice, and was just around it from a really young age. And there's a lot that kind of goes into it where. Or that drew me to it. One is just the impact that it has on kids in a school, and how community pride, especially in smaller towns and stuff, the
Mhm.
pride that they can have in a program, and how it can kind of bring a community together. Both of those things, I think are really important to me. And just being around it, and seeing what he did on a day-to-day basis. I kind of learned math. I'd chart tackles on Saturday morning when he was watching film. It was kind of like my math
Mhm.
homework. So, all that type of stuff, and just being around it, kind of caught a love for it, and knew that was something I wanted to do.
All right. You've been around for the game. You've been around the game for a while now. What keeps you coming back? What still fuels your fire?
I think a lot of things. I think the number one thing, I think all of us are in this for the kids, and the impact you can make. Seeing kids. Obviously there's an impact there. I use this phrase a lot. It doesn't matter what program you have. There's kids that need football more than football needs those kids, and being
Mhm.
able to, kind of have that impact. But also the impact of helping kids, achieve goals, and whether it's, in the
Mhm.
classroom, on the football field, whatever it is, um, you know, helping them try and get from point A to point B, whatever their goal might be. And then, I just, football is the ultimate team game. And it takes all 11 guys on every single play, making a play. It takes the scout team during the week, giving those guys a good look so they're prepared on Friday nights. It's an ultimate team game. And then ultimately, it's fun for me. I don't, look at going to practice or a game as work. And the minute I do is the minute, I'll be done doing this.
Right.
It's fun. I enjoy the competitive part of it, kind of the brotherhood, and the team camaraderie, and all that type of stuff. I'm a guy. I enjoy the kind of the Sunday through Thursday, preparing for Friday night a lot more than I do Friday nights. Friday nights is
Mhm.
kind of like going to the dentist. Only
Right.
things can only go wrong. And so, I really enjoy that aspect. I enjoy this part of the year where you're kind of, building and molding your team, to get ready for the summer and the fall.
Mhm.
So all that stuff. And again, it's not work to me. There's a lot of hours and a lot of things that go into it, but I enjoy every aspect of it. And so as long as I'm enjoying it like that, I'll want to keep coming back.
Absolutely, absolutely. I definitely agree that, like, if you fuel the fire, like, if they keep coming back, you're gonna keep coming back.
Hmm. Yeah,
What's
absolutely.
what's the core philosophy of your football program?
Um, I don't know if we necessarily have one, but I think we're just kind of built off of, one is we live in a great community, and I think our kids take a lot of pride in representing our community, in a positive manner. And yes, that includes winning, but also how they conduct themselves on and off the field. And I think one thing we do is, And a lot of people do. It's not. I'm not saying we do this better than anybody. Our kids work really hard in the weight room and all of those type of things to, put themselves in a good position when the fall rolls around. But I think I don't know if we have a true philosophy, but those are some of the things that we're proud of that we really try and focus on as a football program.
What's your approach to halftime adjustments?
Yeah, they're really important. I think, and I think the better you are, probably the more adjustments that you have to make in the course of a season, because we'll see a lot of things on a Friday night that maybe we haven't prepped for and haven't gotten our kids ready for. I think that's really important. But I think the game's changed a lot. Where yes, halftime adjustments, but with the technology now and having we're close to a 2 platoon team, and we have the I call the offense, and when our offense comes off the field, I can watch the previous drive, on a tablet, and our kids are watching it on a TV. I think the halftime adjustments they start earlier now, because of the technology. You're not waiting to, we used to chart the plays and everything,
Right.
and you'd kind of get that at halftime and look at what worked and what didn't work. But with some of the advancements in technology and what we have access to during the games, I think that's I'm hoping that we don't have a ton of adjustments to make at halftime, because we've made them after the first and second drive of the game,
Right.
and put ourselves in a position a little bit earlier than halftime. But certainly, that is the one time where you can get everybody together and really kind of go through some adjustments. But I think probably that's bigger for us on defense. I think our offense is kind of set up with, again, it's not a technology thing, but as offensive have evolved, and you've got bubble screens and certain things built into different plays,
Right.
the adjustment kind of presents itself, to the quarterback pre-snap. I think some of the more adjustments we probably make is defensively, with what we're having trouble stopping and stuff. But again, we're hoping that happens, after the first drive and the second drive on the sidelines, as coaches and players are watching the previous drive.
Yeah. Where I'm from, we don't have that technology. I'm from Attica, small town. They don't have that. They just like halftime adjustments. That's what I was used to.
Mm-hmm.
How has the program changed since you took over?
I don't know. I think one thing we're proud of is a staff and a program is, since we've gotten here, I don't think, and certainly you're going to have teams that are more talented than others, but we've been really consistent, throughout our time here. And I think that's a thing that we're proud of. There's not like the peaks and valleys. There's just more like little dips and little rises. We've kind of been really consistent about the number of games that we're winning per year. And obviously it kind of depends on who you draw in the tournament and where that goes with how many games you can win the tournament, but just regular season wise, and we've had some nice runs in the tournament and stuff. I think the biggest thing that's changed for us, if you just kind of look at our record, it's probably not what it was, quite as good as it was early in the tenure. But we're scheduling a lot tougher, now than we did in the past. Part of that was due to a conference, our conference kind of changed, and we had some more flexibility, with our non-conference schedule. But we've been pretty aggressive in going out and playing teams that will, try and prepare us, for our conference season, and more importantly, the postseason.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how do you handle college coaches coming in, looking at your players, asking them questions? Like, what's the feeling like? Like, how do you feel?
I think it's a great thing. And we talked, one of the first things we talked about was helping kids and get to their goals. And, if their goal is to play college football, we certainly want to do everything we can to help them do that and put them in the best, help guide them towards the best decision they can make with that. So, no, anytime we have guys in, it's great because our kids are getting exposed. I think even if they decide not to play college football, you know, I encourage them to go through that process to decide if that is something they do or don't want to do. I think if you don't go through that process, you go to college your freshman year and you think, man, I wish I kind of I would have played. And the guys that kind of go through that maybe don't have as much of that, regret. They kind of go through it and like, yeah, this isn't for me, and that's fine. That's great. Go be a student, go be a kid. There's nothing wrong with
Right.
that. But the guys that do want to do it, we're certainly going to send it out, and we answer every email about prospect lists, and we'll talk to anybody, and certainly when guys come in, we're going to try and get them in front of our guys and try and get them exposed to that.
What's your vision for the future of Gibson Southern?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we've had a lot of success. I think the one thing we try and do is, I think it's easy when you're having a good run to just kind of go like, hey, this is working. Let's keep it going. Exactly the same. We're always kind of looking for things. We talked about technology, whether it's technology or how we're training or how we're practicing. Looking for those different things to kind of add into our program, to make it better. But, we want to stay consistent where we're at. I feel like we're a team that, some years better than others. But every year, we're going to start the season in the top 5, top 10, and have a legitimate shot to go on a run. And again, it's hard. We've only won it one time in 13 years. But, you got to be in position, to have a chance to do that. So, just continuing to do that. I think this is a year. I don't think we've been very deep the past couple of years because we've been young. And so when you're young, you're kind of taking the guys that should be the depth guys, and they're on the field. So, I think this is a year where we're kind of getting some depth back. But guys are going to get banged up and stuff, and we want to kind of continue to build our numbers and build our depth and get a little bit better in that way.
What are you most proud of at Gibson Southern so far?
A lot. One is I think we have a fantastic school and fantastic academics. We have great kids in our school, and that doesn't matter if they play football, soccer, swimming,
Right.
whatever it is. We have great kids, and I'm proud of that and the way that they conduct themselves on and off of the fields. And I do think we have such a community backing. There's times that we've had to drive a couple of hours in the tournament, and you look over and we got more people in the visitor section than the home team does.
Right.
It's they do a great job of supporting all of our programs here, but we're talking about football. They do a great job of supporting football, and and I think that's kind of a reflection of what they think about the program and the hard work and the way the kids conduct themselves and all of that. So, just all encompassing. I don't know if I have one thing I'm most proud of, but kind of all of those things put together, just kind of what the feeling of our program is, whether you're a player, a coach, a parent, a fan, someone in the community, just kind of how everybody has pride in the program and what we do every single year.
What are some non-negotiables in your program?
I might be a little bit different. I don't know if we have too many non-negotiables because I think everything's different, and to some kids, this is easy, and to some kids it's not. So I think you kind of put yourself in non-negotiables. You can kind of back yourself into a corner to where a kid might not have a it might not be as easy for him, whatever it is. Like if I say, hey, it's non-negotiable, to miss. Well, things happen, and so do I want kids to miss, and are we just going to let them not show up? No. But the word non-negotiable to me means you're not being flexible, and I think as a high school coach and working with young kids, there has to be a lot of flexibility with what you're doing. So I don't know if it's a non-negotiable, but playing time kind of speaks to this. I mean, when you show up, we expect guys to give maximum effort, whether it's in the weight room, on the practice field, whatever it is, speed training, all that type of stuff. And again, to me, like a non-negotiable means, you're off the team, and obviously we're not going to cut somebody loose for that. But
right.
As a playing time as a non-negotiable, like you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to have a hard time playing on Friday nights. So, so I kind of answered your question, but I know I didn't really. But we I don't know, that term to me, just like I think you're kind of not looking at the big picture and being flexible with young people. If you like, okay, if you do this, you're out. And that's not. We have some kids that have played for us that I think some of the guys on my staff wanted to, like, hey, it's time to kind of cut bait with this guy, as they were a freshman or a sophomore, and we kind of kept working with them. They figured it out and became really good players for us down the line. So again, there's certain expectations and stuff in our program, but I don't know if we use the word non-negotiable because I think everybody's situation is different. And, if we don't recognize that, we're going to lose some kids that need football, and we're going to lose some kids that football needs.
When a new player walks into your program for the very first time, what do you hope they feel, and what do you want them to learn by the time they leave?
Well, I think we're in a unique situation here. We have one school in our school district. One high school in our school district. So from the time third grade on up, they're kind of running our stuff. In our youth leagues, they're running a lot of the stuff that we do. Same thing in middle school. So they already have a pretty good knowledge whenever they come in as freshmen. But what I want them to feel is acceptance from everybody else, and we want everybody to feel a part of the program. And I think our older guys take a lot of pride in that, and a lot of pride in our program. So that's never been an issue. But I do think it is kind of a unique thing here where they're running our stuff from the third grade on up. And again, it's not because Coach Hart's offense is the greatest, and we want to do that, and not that we can in the plays when they get up here. But I think what we strive to do is how many ever third and fourth grade teams we have playing out there on a Saturday. We have that many kids shotgun snapping. We have that many kids playing quarterback, catching and throwing. We ever see, it gets them playing the style of offense that they're going to play whenever they get up to high school, and a lot of reps at that at a young age. And it's still, we do it, and we'll still have bad snaps this year. That's just going to happen. But the more we can cut down on those type of things, the more reps you have, the more you're going to be able to cut down on that. Through the course of a season.
What do you look for when moving a player to a new position that they never played before?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I think too, especially with us, at the 3A level, being somewhat two platooned, we'll have guys flip over some and play a different side of the ball. But we're going to start 22 most years whenever we go out. So I think especially we at that, with that being our philosophy, you really have to identify, okay, like we have a couple guys this year that either, hey, maybe they played corner last year, but we think they're a better fit on offense, or vice versa, a receiver that like, okay, we need help in the secondary and we've got some depth at receiver. Like this guy's got to go over and play corner. So, that really starts for us at the end of the season as a staff, just kind of looking at who's coming back and, the young guys are going to, come up and have a chance to start on varsity and where all those kind of pieces fit. And I think, our kids have always done a great job of buying into that. Like, hey, if you're telling me that I need to go play offense and help the team out, I'm in. I'm going to go do it. So, I think that's really important for us in our program. And I think the nice thing is, as a staff, I know there are staffs, I've been on staffs where like, the defensive guys and the offensive guys are fighting over kids. Like we need them on defense. Our two different sides of the ball work so well together on, they have that same philosophy. It's going to, we might not be as good on offense, but if it's going to help us win, let's move this kid to corner, and help our football team out. So, I have a great staff, and they do a great job of buying into all of that.
How do you prepare your team for big games?
Not any different than we do every week. I think, every week to us is kind of the same. And I think the nice thing about our sport, right? You play 1 week a game. It's almost all, we have one Saturday this year, but it's usually on Friday nights. So your practice week kind of looks the same. Now, obviously, we don't want to get too monotonous, like with exactly everything that we're doing, but we're going to install and go through stuff on Monday, and Tuesday, Wednesdays are our big days. And then you kind of put the bow on it on Thursday, with a run through. But each week, so it doesn't matter if we're going into week 9 and the team's 8-0 or 0-8, that's really going to look the same. And I really believe that, if you put a different emphasis on it as a coach, I think that can tighten your kids up if you're going to prepare for a big game different than you are every week. And I think teenagers are creatures of habit. So we try and, kind of keep that, that same routine going through every week.
What's your game day routine?
I don't really have one. I guess it depends. I'm the athletic director here. So if we have a home game, I'm doing a lot of setting up, throughout the day of, concessions and ticket booths and all that type of stuff and getting everything ready to go. And on the road, there's a little bit more downtime throughout the day. But, just printing off call sheets, kind of going through all that stuff. And, our staff really likes to hang out together. And so, they feed our kids after school. Our parent group does. And so we'll get some food and just kind of, hang out in the coach's office and, talk about everything from the game to college football to, whatever else is going on, and just kind of hang out there until game time.
All right. What are you most how do you identify leaders on the team?
I kind of going to answer your question a little bit different way. I always kind of feel like the leaders on our team identify themselves. It's really easy, to tell, I think, going into a season who the leaders of your football team are going to be. Certainly some years there can be some surprises. Some kids, can kind of let you down from that standpoint. But I think the leaders kind of identify themselves. They just kind of step up and take that role. And one thing I like to do is kind of talk to the seniors, some, but mostly the younger guys. Like, who do you think the best leaders are on our football team? And it's pretty amazing that every year, they're going to name the same dudes. No matter who you ask. So, as opposed to us identifying, I think those guys really identify themselves.
What's something about your program that people might not know?
Whew. I don't know. I think we're pretty transparent. We do a coach's show every week and stuff. I don't know if there's a whole lot that people don't know. And I'd leave some guys out, so I'm not going to name them, I think. But, I've been here 13 years, and I have a group of like 5 or 6 guys on the staff. We have a big staff, but a group of 5 or 6 of us have been here, together all 13 years.
Mhm.
So, there's always turnover, and we've lost some really good coaches. We gained some really good coaches. But, that core group that's kind of been here all 13 years is, I think, pretty special. And they've done a lot to really help, elevate our program.
What is your offensive slash defensive identity?
Yeah, offensively, we're spread, up tempo. We go as fast as we can. And I think it's, one of the reasons we want to do that is at our level, because of our depth, and we can get close to 2 platoon. The more plays we play in a game, the better.
Mhm.
If another team's playing it guys both ways, and they they punt to us, those O linemen turn around and play D line, and we're running fresh bodies onto the field. So that's our identity on offense, is just we're spread, we go fast. At times we'll formation, but really kind of focus on tempo. And I don't think I think what we do is good, otherwise I wouldn't do it. But we're not overly
Mhm.
complicated system wise. I think it's important for the kids to understand what you're doing. And like I talked about earlier, we have a lot of built-in things to a play. You might have a hitch and a bubble in a run play, and take what they're giving you. And then defensively, we're a 4-man front. We started here as a 3-4 for probably the first 8 or 9 years. And probably 4 or 5 years ago, we switched to a 4-3 or a 4-2-5, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
But we're an even front now, and play a lot of 2 high safety stuff. But it really changes week to week. I think coaching at this level of football is really unique, where you know you get in the bigger schools, and almost everybody's in some version of the spread, and everybody's a little bit different. And the spread is an all encompassing term. You can play out of the
Mhm.
spread and out the gun a million different ways. But you're seeing a lot of the same stuff. We're here, we might see, you know, like this year, we're going to see, flex bone week 1. Week 2, we're going to see a multiple spread with tight ends and wings, and a bunch of different things. And then week 3 is going to be like a true spread. Week 4, maybe some like split back stuff. Week 5, shotgun wing T. Like it just,
Mhm.
you're seeing different things week to week. Which I
Right.
think makes it really hard on defenses at this level, because you're not getting, you can't really add to your defensive portfolio as you go through the season, because
Mhm.
you have to adapt each week to the different style that you're going to see.
Right. Coach, my final question for today is, what was your favorite season as a head coach?
Um, I think a lot of people would probably guess I was going to say the state championship year. That was a really special year. But our first year here in 2012, I think they'd won 3 or 4 games the year before. We came in, we went 7-2. We got hot in the playoffs. We won 2 games in overtime in the sectional. We were down 28 at one point in the regional, and came back and won, and made it all the way to the semi-state. And that was a really special group that always thankful for. And they're grown men now. I see them, when my kids down playing little league, they got kids down there too. Um, but that group really kind of jump started what we've been able to do here, with going on that run, the excitement that came with that, and it brought to our program. And how we were able to raise the expectations really overnight. That group was really, really special.
It's always like your first year. It's almost always the coach's favorite year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coach, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. I'm Bryan Jones. He's Nick Hart. This is Sideline Shenanigans. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening. At Sideline Shenanigans, we celebrate everything about the game: grit, grind, and glory. But behind the jerseys and Friday Night Lights, there's something way more important: your life. Mental health is just as real and critical as any injury you can see. And when the pressure feels too heavy or the pain gets too quiet, know this: you are not alone. We lose far too many teammates, classmates, and friends to suicide. One life lost is one too many. If you're struggling, speak up. If you see someone hurting, reach out. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It shows strength beyond the scoreboard. You matter, your story matters, and there is help. Call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, 24/7. No shame, just support. We are all on the same team when it comes to mental health. Let's have each other's backs on and off the field. Thank you.